Good morning. Please join me in the call to worship. The goal of the UCC Disabilities Ministries is that all members of the United Church of Christ
shall affirm the biblical and theological assumption of the wholeness of all people
and fully support persons with disabilities as
they contribute and participate in the ministry of the church.
Millions of Americans and even more around the world live with a variety of disabilities. Disabilities come in many forms. Some are outwardly visible, but many are not. From a Harris survey, only 47% of people with disabilities attend church at least once per month, most likely due to architectural, programmatic, communication, and attitudinal barriers.
Even with barriers that exist, the UCC is filled with individuals who rise above their challenges and leave a legacy of inspiration and leadership.
Reverend Harold Wilkie was born without arms to parents who encouraged his independence. Although originally discouraged by others to become a minister, he was ordained in 1939. Reverend Wilkie was one of the first Americans with a severe disability to serve as a local pastor. His advocacy for differently abled persons led to changes in disability rights and making places of worship more accessible. His work as a minister inspired Virginia Cryer to become a minister also.
Virginia Cryer was born with cerebral palsy to a mother who would not allow others to place limits on Virginia's abilities. She once said, "Harold Wilkie, he made the difference between Miss Cryer and the Reverend Miss Cryer. When I applied to Union Seminary, one reason they accepted a person with severe cerebral palsy was that Harold Wilkie had been accepted there and made it." Reverend Cryer joined the UCC in 1971, where she worked tirelessly for the inclusion of people with disabilities.
In 1971, a task force on disability started in the New York metropolitan area and turned into a movement. 17 years later, at General Synod 20 in Oakland, California, the UCC formally adopted a resolution calling for accessibility in all our congregations.
25 years ago, in 1990, when President George Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, UCC Minister Harold Wilkie was there.
Today we celebrate the breaking of the chains which have held back millions of Americans with disabilities. Today we celebrate the granting to them of full citizenship and access to the promised land of work, service, and community.
Although churches were not technically bound by the ADA, the UCC did resolve at General Synod 25 in 1995 to strive to comply. At the same time, Synod and the Church had been calling us all to be multiracial and multicultural. The statement, "accessible to all," was added. All UCC organizations were to embody the philosophy of inclusion and reflect on disabilities' rights and ways that congregations are able to become accessible to all and remove or overcome barriers to welcoming and including all people in the work and witness of the UCC. The recently revised resource, Anybody, Everybody, Christ's Body, is available to assist congregations in becoming extravagantly welcoming to all.
The UCC Disabilities Ministries and UCC Mental Health Network collaborate on raising awareness through education in the hope of eliminating discrimination toward all physical and mental disabilities. This partnership works to widen the welcome of inclusion for all who participate in the church community.
To honor the memory of Virginia Cryer, Disabilities Ministries developed the Virginia Cryer Endowed Scholarship Fund for Theological Education for persons with disabilities called to authorized ministry. The scholarships are for UCC members with disabilities who are going through a formal discernment process, are enrolled in an appropriate theological or lay ministry program, or are engaged in an approved mentoring program. Your generous contributions enable Disabilities Ministries to support future UCC leaders as a fitting tribute to both Reverend Virginia Cryer and her inspiration, Reverend Harold Wilkie.
As the Disabilities Ministries looks to the future, consider these words from former UCC Minister of Diversity and Inclusion, Reverend Margaret Slater. All UCC congregations can become accessible. To become welcoming and inclusive of persons with disabilities is much more than having proper ramps and elevators, although these are really important. Full inclusion is a spiritual attitude as well.
Let's strive
to make
all
all
UCC
UCC
congregations
accessible
accessible to all.
Accessible to all.